everyone, and welcome back to my What If series. Today, we're going to be looking at what if Luffy was a Marine? What if Luffy never became a pirate? Not because he gave up on his dream, not because he stopped wanting freedom, but because the people around him pushed that same dream in a completely different direction. Imagine a version of One Piece where Luffy still wants to be the freest person on the sea, but instead of raising a pirate flag, he puts on a Marine coat. At first, it sounds wrong. Like, completely wrong. Luffy hates being told what to do. He doesn't care about ranks. He doesn't care about rules. He barely listens when his own crew is trying to keep him alive. So, Luffy joining the Marines feels kind of impossible. But that's exactly why it's interesting. Because if Luffy became a Marine, he wouldn't become a normal Marine. He'd become a walking disaster for the entire system. And the story would start changing almost immediately. The biggest reason this could happen is because of Garp, his grandfather. In the original story, Garp wants Luffy to become a strong Marine, but Luffy grows up around pirates. He meets Shanks, he sees the red-haired pirates laughing, eating, protecting people, and living however they want. That becomes Luffy's idea of the sea. But in this version, there's another moment that matters just as much. Picture Luffy, Ace, and Sabo as kids, sitting together and talking about their dreams. Ace still wants to prove his life means something. Sabo still wants to be free from the world he was born into. But Luffy's dream sounds different now. Instead of yelling that he's going to become king of the pirates, he says he wants to become the freest Marine on the sea. And Ace would probably look at him like, what are you even talking about? Sabo would laugh too, because becoming a Marine sounds like the opposite of freedom to him. But Luffy wouldn't mean it the way Garp means it. He's not dreaming about ranks. He's not dreaming about medals. And he's definitely not dreaming about sitting in an office taking orders for some old men all day. In Luffy's head, a Marine is someone with a ship, a coat, and the power to go wherever the people need them. So even as a kid, Luffy's dream is still Luffy's dream. The words change, but the heart of it doesn't. And that's where Garp comes. After Shanks loses his arm, saving Luffy, Garp gets scared. Not scared in a normal way, because Garp is still Garp, but he realizes something. If Luffy keeps chasing pirates, he's not just going to become reckless. He's going to become impossible to control. So Garp takes him away early. Instead of letting Luffy stay in Fuchsia Village dreaming about pirate ships, Garp drags him straight toward marine life. Training grounds, marine bases, hard lessons, and real danger. Luffy hates almost all of it. He hates the saluting, he hates the lectures, he hates the uniform. But there's one thing he doesn't hate, and that's helping people. And that's the key difference. Luffy doesn't become a Marine because he believes in the world government. He becomes a Marine because he starts seeing ordinary people getting hurt by pirates, corrupt officers, and people with power. And Luffy has always had one very simple instinct. If someone's hurting people in front of him, he helps them. So Garp basically tells him, if you want to punch the bad guys on the sea, wear the coat. And somehow, that actually works. Because Luffy realizes the Marine coat gives him a ship, a reason to travel, and a whole lot of people who need help. So when the story begins, Luffy isn't setting sail as a rookie pirate, he's a rookie Marine. And the East Blue instantly becomes chaos. The first big change is Shellstown. In the original story, Luffy meets Zoro while Zoro's tied up by the Marines because of Captain Morgan's corruption. If Luffy's a Marine, that scene feels completely different. He arrives wearing the same symbol as the people abusing Zoro. Zoro wouldn't trust him at all, and honestly, why would he? From Zoro's point of view, Luffy is just another Marine kid walking into a broken base and acting like he owns the place. But Luffy is still Luffy. He hears what Morgan is doing, sees Zoro being punished unfairly, and instantly decides Morgan is the problem. This is where Luffy's Marine career gets messy right away. Because instead of following orders, he punches a Marine captain through a wall. That one moment would define him. To the people of Shellstown, Luffy becomes a hero. To Marine paperwork, he's a nightmare. And to Zoro, he's just confusing. Zoro still probably wouldn't join the Marines. He's too independent, and he has absolutely no interest in wearing a uniform. But he might, not as a subordinate, more like someone who wants to see what this insane Marine is actually going to do next. Instead of the pirate hunter Zoro joining a pirate crew, we get Zoro becoming the unofficial partner of the most rule-breaking Marine in the East Blue. Then we get Nami, and this change is massive. In the original story, Nami works with pirates because Arlong controls her village and the Marines look the other way. But if Marine Luffy reaches Koshigaya village, Nami's reaction would be brutal. She'd hate him at first, not dislike, but hate. Because in Nami's life, the Marines aren't protectors. They're the people who took bribes and abandoned her village. So when Luffy shows up wearing that coat, Nami wouldn't see a hero. She'd see the same system that failed her. And that would hit Luffy harder than he expected. Because Luffy is simple. He's not stupid when it comes to people's pain. He'd realize the uniform means something different to Nami than it means to him. To him, it's a way to protect people. To her, it's proof that nobody can. That makes Arlong Park even more painful, because Luffy wouldn't just be fighting Arlong. He'd be fighting the rotten side of the Marines too. He'd exposed in the most Luffy way possible that if the Marines failed her, then he'll become the kind of Marine who doesn't. That's the moment Nami might join him. Not because she suddenly trusts Marines, because she trusts Luffy. And that's the pattern for this whole version. People don't follow the organization. They follow him. Usopp would be different too. He still helped stop Kuro. But now the whole thing gets weird because the Marines saving the village make Usopp's lies sound even bigger. Usopp has spent his entire life pretending pirates are coming. Then a Marine arrives, a real threat appears, and Usopp has to be brave anyway. Luffy would still respect that. He doesn't care if Usopp is weak. He cares that Usopp stands up when it matters. But would Usopp join the Marines? Probably not officially. At least, not at first. He'd be terrified of the training, the rules, and the danger. But if Luffy, Zoro, and Nami leave, Usopp would still want to go. So he becomes something like a Marine assistant, a storyteller, a sniper in training, and the guy consistently asking if they are ever allowed to do any of this. The answer is usually no. When we get to Barra in a really fun way, because Sanji already has complicated feelings about pirates, debt, and survival. When Don Krieg attacks, Marine Luffy would be expected to handle it, but he wouldn't act like a proper officer. He'd protect the cooks first, ignore half the strategy, and fight Krieg because Krieg is hurting people. Sanji would understand that. Sanji respects people who feed the hungry and Marine who acts more like a free pirate than most pirates do. It would mess with his head. Sanji might still leave Baratie, but not because he wants to become a Marine. He leaves because Luffy's group gives him a chance to chase the All Blue while still protecting people along the way. And now Luffy has a problem. His Marine unit is basically a crew. Zoro isn't enlisted. Nami barely trusts the organization. Usopp keeps panicking. Sanji refuses to follow orders from anyone he doesn't respect. And Luffy is technically the Marine in charge, even though he's the least responsible person there. The higher-ups would lose their mind. Smoker would be one of the first real tests. Hunts Luffy because Luffy's a pirate. In this version, Smoker sees something almost worse. A Marine who acts like a pirate while claiming to fight for justice. Smoker wouldn't hate Luffy, but he definitely wouldn't trust him. He'd see Luffy as dangerous because Luffy doesn't care about the chain of command. And that's the scary part. Smoker would be right. Luffy's version of justice isn't Marine justice. It's not government justice. It's not absolute justice. It's personal justice. If he sees someone suffering, he acts. If an order tells him to ignore it, he ignores the order. And once the story reaches the Grand Line, that becomes a much bigger problem. Alabasta is where the world government really starts paying attention, because Crocodile is a warlord. On paper, he's protected by the system. If Luffy is a pirate, defeating Crocodile embarrasses the government. But if Luffy is a Marine, it's even worse. Because now, a Marine is openly exposing that one of the government's own protected pirates nearly destroyed a country. Luffy wouldn't care about any of the politics, though. Vivi is crying, Alabasta is suffering, and Crocodile is the problem. So Luffy beats him. And after that, the Marines can't just call him a criminal. He's their problem. That makes the government's response way trickier. They might promote him in public to control the story. but behind the scenes they start watching him very closely, because Luffy is becoming famous for the worst possible reasons. He makes people believe the Marines can be better than the world government, and that's dangerous. Then comes Robin. This might be the biggest emotional change. In the original story, Robin joins the Straw Hats because Luffy refuses to let her die. In this version, Robin would be even more suspicious. A Marine offering a place to belong? That sounds like a trap. The Marines destroyed Ohara. The world government has hunted her since she was a kid. So if Luffy reaches out to Robin while wearing that coat, she would probably laugh in his face. But Luffy would still say the same kind of thing he always says. If you want to live, then live. And if anyone tries to stop you, I'll punch them. That line becomes even more powerful because it's coming from inside the enemy's uniform. Eni's lobby would be completely different. Instead of pirates declaring war on the world government, it would be a Marine turning against the world government to save Robin. That's not just rebellion, that's a scandal. By this point, Luffy probably stops being a Marine officially. Not because he chooses piracy from the start, but because the system finally rejects him. The world government would brand him a traitor. Some Marines would call him dangerous. Others would secretly admire him. And Garp would be furious. But deep down, he knows exactly what happened. He tried to turn Luffy turned the Marines into a stage for his own kind of freedom. And that's the real heart of this what if. Luffy wearing a Marine coat doesn't change who Luffy is. It changes who has to deal with him. As a pirate, Luffy challenges the world from the outside. As a Marine, he challenges it from the inside. He protects people the system ignores. He makes friends with people he's supposed to arrest. He breaks rules whether the rules protect the wrong person or not. And eventually, the world government would realize something terrifying. Luffy was never dangerous because he was a pirate. He was dangerous because he's Luffy. Give him a pirate flag and he builds a crew. Give him a Marine coat and he accidentally starts a revolution. So would Luffy stay as a Marine forever? No, I don't think he could. The moment the Marines order him to abandon someone like Robin, Vivi, Nami, or any innocent person, Luffy would choose the person every time. But that's what makes this version so interesting to me. He'd begin as Garp's dream. He'd become the world's government's headache, and by the end, he might become something even stronger than the Pirate King. A Marine who's proved that freedom and justice were never supposed to be enemies. And maybe this version of Luffy wouldn't be chasing a title of Pirate King. Maybe he'd be chasing something even harder. A sea where nobody has to be afraid of pirates, Marines, kings, or governments. A sea where people can eat, laugh, travel, and live however they want. Which, when you think about it, is still the same dream. He just took the loudest, messiest, most chaotic route possible to get there. So what do you think? If Luffy became a Marine, would he actually change the Marines from the inside? Or would he end up becoming a pirate anyway? Let me know in the comments below.